Welcome back to Caps Off. We are back in action. I am your host of this show, Rebecca Paulette, and I hope that you all are ready for what the second episode is going to bring. We are going to be real, we're going to be raw, we're going to be transparent, we're going to be honest, we're going to be truthful, we're going to lay it out on the table. All cards. Totally honest, I was going to do a different topic that had to do with something else, but I'm like, I don't think that we finished off my testimony, really diving into my testimony and diving into the story. And so I was like, I'm gonna make the second episode have to do more about the story, more diving deep into my testimony and really unveiling and unpacking really what has happened in the past 10 years, what brought me into that life and what brought me out. So I hope that you all are ready as we get into it. And so I'm not really going to get too much into my childhood because there isn't that much to really talk about regarding my childhood. Pretty much the only things really regarding my childhood is that I knew at a young age that I had an attraction to women. About third grade, I knew that I had my first girl crush. And then 5th, 6th grade, I started to really dress like a boy. That was like a real telltale sign. I was really boyish. I was dressing boy clothes. I was like, it was real. You couldn't miss it. I mean, I was really dressing like a boy at like 5th, 6th grade. And basically, I would say high school were my years that really would turn the curve. That would really end up being where I would really turn the curve and know that I'm interested in women, know that my attraction was to women. Though I did have a slight attraction to men, I only really acted on dating men in high school due to being bullied or being picked on regarding to the fact that people knew that I didn't have a boyfriend or knew that they didn't ever see me dating men. So I kind of just blended in. Though there was attraction there, it was very slight, but I knew that I was pretty much dominant as far as that I was just into women. But my high school years really consumed of me dating men or really kind of jumping in the pool and dating men. And I ended up being with only one man, like seriously, like on a serious relationship level. I only ever been with one man, and I haven't been with a man in over 10 years. And actually, that man was the last man I was ever with. But that relationship would wind up being sort of the stepping stone to never dating men after that. And we were kids, right? We were young kids, you know. We didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't even really know what we wanted. But it ended up a very toxic relationship for the both of us. And I think ultimately it would end up really scaring me and pushing me into a direction where I said, I am never going to be with a man again. Like, I have no interest. I have been hurt. This is pain. And this was pain that I didn't face. I didn't go to heal or try and find healing. I went to the mindset of saying, I'm never dating a man again. And so, in all honesty, after that, I just really, I would say, fully embraced my lifestyle. And this is where everything would take a turn because I ended up getting affected in the relationship where my own insecure thoughts would end up seeing that I was insecure about my size. Like, I had thought to myself that I wouldn't be with the man because I feel that I am something that they can hurt on a physical level too. Like injure. Like, as a woman, it is weak because I am someone that they can actually hurt. And I don't want ever to put a man in a place where they can feel that they could cower over me or they could own me or they could control me or they could manipulate me, wherever the case may be. But stature wise, I was very insecure because I was already into women. That's where things got distorted and really started to get twisted, because after that I really started to getting into boy clothes again. I started to wear boy clothes again. And eventually, later, in some point in time, I would end up cutting my hair off. So I fully was like, I am going to also be a man because I'm going to look, I'm going to be, I'm going to act as what I would have desired for a man to be. I'm going to be everything that they weren't. I'm going to be everything that even the men in the world aren't. I'm going to be everything and more that they can't be to a woman. And that will be the best revenge that I could possibly get. That would end up being my toxic behavior for about 10 years of my life. I ended up really just like fully indulging into that mindset. Most of even the relationships with the women that I've been with was a stem or carrying of trauma and pain and stuff. So I had trusting issues. I had abandonment issues as well. I was scared of being abandoned. I became also very obsessive over getting love, like actually receiving and having a relationships, like to be able to fill that like void of what I was missing. And let's move on to when I really started dating women. So I ended up having a first relationship with a woman in New York City. I was attending an acting school. I ended up meeting a girl out in New York City, and this would end up being my first relationship, like my first love. And so this relationship would end up turning out to be very toxic. I ended up buying a ring for this girl because at a young age I thought that I wanted to get married to her. And I was very serious in this relationship with this individual. It ended up in turn not working out. And it was very toxic. To be totally honest, I would end up actually cheating on this person. It was the only person I've ever cheated on in my life. The only person I've ever cheated on in my life. So now we're seeing a reflection of past trauma and pain and stuff that I was dealing with and lack of trust that I had felt in partners, but also where I was in a relationship with somebody too that was very toxic as well. We were both toxic individuals. I gonna use that word a lot in my story here, but basically it didn't end up working out, and I would end up in turn getting more hurt by this because I really did want it to work out. And knowing that it failed, it would end up turning me kind of into a cocky individual. It would end up turning me into complete, like, stone cold heart person. And actually, this first girlfriend was very into New Age, was very into seeing sidekicks and stuff like that. Like, while I was actually in this relationship, at one point in time before I had actually cheated, and my ex told me that I went and saw a psychic and they told me that you're going to cheat on me. And I was like, excuse me, what? Like, why are you even going? And me being a Christian, raised in a Christian household, I was like, why are you even going to see a psychic? Like that stuff you need to stay far away from. Like, I was raised to not get connected to that stuff. And that's when they started to turn against me and started to almost treat me worse. Would end up leading my ex into basically breaking up with me, getting back together with me, breaking up with me, getting back together with me, breaking up with me, getting back together with me. And so I just felt unsure. I felt scared of all love. I didn't even know what love was by that point. It was morphed. It was distorted for me. Like, I was just like, no, but I want to be with this person. The end, it didn't work out. And so then, that first love, that puppy love would end up being something that ended up really being a heartbreak for me. And so fast forward to now the second girlfriend. So in between the first and the second girlfriend, by the way, I went into a serious party phase where I became very cocky. I became full on like a player and basically was out drinking and clubbing and doing drugs and, getting validation and gratification by going out and not caring about life, not caring about anybody but myself. I loved to be the star of the show, the center of attention when I was out, and loved the attention that I was getting from multiple people and was living a high life, sort of lifestyle. But I was really seeking like a relationship. Like that was like the inner part of me. Like I was this old soul relationship type person that was like, even though I'm doing all this stuff, I really want a woman. I really want to be in a relationship with a woman. So I became pretty much desperate in some sense. I became desperate. And so I was this like cold hearted player due to being hurt now a couple times. And now I'm moving into a second relationship but this time I'm like, well, this second relationship, I'm gonna make everything right. I'm gonna make up for my wrongs. So I'm gonna be the most perfect person to another damaged individual and see what happens. Now that would end up being in turn a huge regret that I had made on my part, because I ended up being more traumatized, being put through more damage and more pain, because my second girlfriend would end up being a very toxic relationship. It ended up being the worst relationship out of all relationships. It was basically like guns and daggers constantly at each other. So the second girlfriend I had would be the definition of just like, I was a wreck. I ended up like getting into serious drugs at this time. And it got really dark. This is probably one of the darkest moments of my life, because I was doing really harsh drugs and it was killing me. It's actually really heartbreaking part of my past, because this ended up being one of the darkest moments of my life. And I was also in a relationship with somebody that was cheating on me constantly. I was constantly trying to make things right, kind of make up for my things that I did to my past. Well, this would end up being a woman too that I also tried to like settle down with and stuff like that. So that relationship would end up kind of also being the icing on the cherry on top of the cake. It would end up being the cherry on top of the cake that I would never be able to surrender as much to a woman ever again. Like I wouldn't be able to fully be able to trust a woman ever again. It was so toxic on so many levels. So now by this point in time, I reached the numb phase. I'm numb by this point. I'm numb by my lifestyle of nothingness, by the temporary satisfaction of a high life, party life, going out, meeting multiple women, being with multiple women. Still, I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to surrender to myself. I wasn't ready to, and God wasn't even a topic of conversation. I didn't want anything to do with God. I didn't want to follow God. I had no desire to even be a part of even being with God. So mind you, I was raised in a Christian household when I was a child. I was raised to know Jesus, know who God is. I never had a relationship with God. I never grew a relationship with God. I was never close to God. I was saved as a little girl. When I was 12 years old, I got saved. But I never had like a relationship with God. So in these years, I was completely just uninterested. I didn't care about anybody but myself. I was doing just fine. I thought that I was successful and I was charming and I was good looking and I had nothing to worry about. Plus, I didn't have a relationship with God and I didn't care to have one. I was only caring about myself and I didn't care about anything else. So now we're like moving on and I haven't been with a woman for quite a long time. This is three years have passed. I still hadn't had a girlfriend since the second girlfriend. And then I had met somebody that I was talking to in the time of my second girlfriend when we were broken up, but we were still had a thing with each other, but we were separating. And so this is the third woman that I was with, or in essence, the third woman that would end up really kind of pushing me back overboard. And I got really attached to the third woman. This is a woman that I had told people that I was going to marry. Like if this woman would have been a woman that had gotten herself together and wouldn't have been so scared and didn't shut down towards me, that I would have married this individual. Like, I was certain that I was going to marry this individual, and thank God that I did not. Thank God, thank you, Jesus, that I did not. Now, I did want to add something here, that the three people that I was the most serious with, now, I had talked to a lot of women in these times. I was where I had talked to a lot of women, and to kind of give a background as to, I was constantly talking to women that either were traumatized or hurt from past relationships. They were maybe more into men than they were into women. They were talking to another man. They would ghost me. They wouldn't talk to me anymore. We'd have a thing for a little while. Then it just, they completely disappear. These women would somehow, I always had to be talking to individuals that would just be getting out of something. Like, there was always somebody that was just getting out of something and they weren't ready. So I was constantly being rejected. Like, there was so much rejection that I had dealt with dating women. Like, I was constantly being rejected, constantly put off, constantly not good enough, constantly. And it was so heavy. Like, and there were so many times that I was crying over being alone and being scared and being hurt and never feeling enough. And so now I had started to really develop a side of myself that I was really diving into temporary satisfactions. Like, if the partying wasn't enough, then it started to become physical things. Like, I really wanted to be like built like a man. Like, that would be something that women would definitely be attracted to. Or I'm going to dabble into how to be successful, how to have a lot of money. Or I'm going to really enhance, like, maybe tanning more often, or having a certain hair color, or doing something, getting piercings again, this, because it'd be hot. Like, so I really started to just be obsessed with outside appearance, and to maybe that will bring in the, people, or like women. Believe it or not, at this moment in time, like I told you, I started to really get obsessive about outside appearance. So I was really thinking of actually dabbling into steroids and sort of really developing into a manly body, starting to dabble into becoming transgender. And so right at the same time, I have pretty much the red pill and the blue pill in the hands of God, really. And it's, which pill are you going to take? Which road are you going to take? You're either going to take this and you're going to go way this way, or you're going to take this and everything is going to change. And you're going to trust me, and you're going to give your whole life over to me. And you're not going to look back. So from September to January 1st of 2022, I spent basically those 3 months of this woman, this third woman that I'm talking to now for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years. And I could never get this woman to be with me, but I really wanted to marry this woman. And I was telling her, I really want to marry you. Like, I will stay here and be with you if you say yes. And so I was kind of contemplating on leaving Reno, Nevada, and moving to Orlando, Florida. But I wasn't going to give up my life if she wanted to be with me. I was going to be fully invested 100% into this individual. So here I am, giving the last shot left in me, the last shot that could possibly, the last thing that I could possibly have. Because deep down, I wasn't happy. Deep down, I was really oppressed by a lack of peace, a lack of joy. And basically, once this third woman had basically shut me down and basically was like, don't ever talk to me again. And I basically had said before the new year to my own self, if this person doesn't choose me by January 1st of 2022, I'm going to completely give my life over to God. So when January 1st came And at December 31st, they sent that message saying, I'm done. Don't ever talk to me again. That was the actual last time I had ever even, let alone talk to a woman. I haven't talked to a woman since December 31st. Technically, we could say January 1st of 2022. I made a vow to God that when I was going to give my life fully over to God, I was going to 100% give my life over to God. So January 1st was the very beginning, the first day of my relationship with the Lord. January 1st was the day that I gave my life over to God, that I fully surrendered, and that I made a decision that I was never going to go back to that lifestyle ever again. I just dropped it. I dropped it. So here we are, over a year and 2 months later, and I have completely been transformed by God, and I live a life fully devoted to Christ. Don't get me wrong, I still get tempted. If you want me to be completely transparent with you, I still get tempted. That's 100%, that I still get tempted, but I just don't act on that temptation. Being a Christian and having a relationship with God releases me from the powers of sin, but by no means does it erase the possibility of temptation. So I'm covered by the blood of Christ. God guards my portals, protects my peace, and I continue to stay to that vow and continue to be faithful to Christ. And even though I've had moments of temptation, I just say no to it and I completely shut it down, and I continue to say no to that temptation. And nevertheless, I just want to say that this has been hard. It has not been easy. If you want me to be totally honest with you, it's not been easy. But it's been worth it, because the level of peace that I receive, you can't find it in this world. The level of joy that God gives me and the peace that He gives me, you can't get it from this world. The world can't give it to you. There's no way. It can't supply that to you. Only God can supply that type of love. Only God can be able to come in and fill that void, that missing piece, that little something that you've been missing in your life. As we bring this to a close, I just want to summarize that basically my past 10 years had been a search for love. I was desperately trying to search for love. And if love wasn't filling, if love wasn't supplying, I was finding it in different things. I was finding it in partying, doing drugs, having fun, dating multiple people, talking to multiple people, doing things that were not right to do. I was doing everything that everybody else was doing. Nevertheless, I was doing things completely driven by selfish desires. And if I could give you any words of advice, I would say I have done everything that a human would want to do. I have done everything that you would want to experience to get out of your system. But I will say this, the only way that you can find God is that you have to find it on your own. I can't press this enough and, stress this enough, that God is something that the heart has to desire, that man has to desire a relationship with God. And if we don't want that relationship with God, we're going to continue to feel otherwise about it. But may I be proof for anybody that is watching this that there is a God. May I be proof by what you've personally seen, the true manifestation of Jesus Christ, and proof and evidence of what God can do, that there really is a God, and that there really is a God that must exist to see my past and to see where I am now. And I'm just so thankful that God came in my life and transformed me completely. And He who has begun a good work will be faithful to complete it. Right? So I want to thank all of you so much for taking the time to watch the second episode of Caps Off as we dissected, dove into the story of my life and my journey, and now my life with Christ. And that I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, for joining second episode of Caps Off, and stay tuned for more to come. God bless.